Now, this is something I found suspicious. Take a look at this white car here. The passenger gets out of the passenger side, walks around the back of the car, and gets in the driver's side.
You did locate this Department of Transportation camera, and your testimony is it just froze at 10:23 p.m. just as Mr. Cheeseborough showed up?
Correct.
Okay.
And we are back, and we are back. Thank you all for watching today. Go ahead and hit that like button, y'all. Go ahead and hit the like button. It helps us out, and it helps you out because it helps us. It helps us keep bringing you this excellent content. Now, y'all, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to try to compile a lot of the more salient points in the Shymel Drinks investigation. And I'd like for y'all to just sit back, relax, y'all. If you have time today, we're going to go through testimony, and we're also going to analyze the video more. Now, there are a lot of theories out there, y'all, and there's no way to go through all of the theories, but there are a few things that maybe you didn't notice. I blow up the video. We're going to catch a couple of things that you might not be able to see on a cell phone, but I'm going to blow it up so you can see it. And also, there's some very interesting and curious things that are happening around the time that this whole incident happens. Also, you're going to see where a police officer, he said that that there was a camera working at the time right near that intersection, but strangely, right around the time of the incident, that camera stopped working, y'all. So there's a lot to unpack with this. We're going to look at the testimony again. And also, again, we're going to review the video. So right before getting into the video, y'all, you know I have to let you know about our paralegal program. We've been at paralegal education for over 20 years. So if you're looking to work in the legal field, go to careerparalegal.com. I'm going to leave a link in the description. That's careerparalegal.com. Reach out to us. You can get connected with our national. Yeah, we're all across the whole country, y'all. The whole world, actually. We have students across the world. Our international paralegal program with internship. We connect you with a law firm where you can work in person or virtually, learn how to do the paralegal tasks, and then get a job as a paralegal. Again, careerparalegal.com. All right, y'all. Well, thanks for sitting through the intro. Without further ado, sit back, relax, hit the like, comment, subscribe, and let's get into it.
Raven Williams, RAVEN WILLIAMS.
And good morning, Ms. Williams. How are you?
Good morning. I'm fine.
How old are you?
36.
And do you work?
Yeah.
What type of work do you do?
Home health care.
Okay. And are you from Atlanta?
Basically, yeah.
When you say basic, what do you mean?
I was raised in Augusta.
And how long have you been in the Atlanta area?
About 16 years.
And do you know someone by the name of Shymel Drinks?
Yes.
And how do you know Shymel?
I've been knowing him since Augusta.
Were you both raised together in Augusta?
We wasn't raised together, but we were around each other a lot.
And are you familiar with his family?
Yes.
Do you know his mother?
Yes.
All right. And what's her name?
Sandra.
And does he have siblings?
Yes.
How many?
4.
And did he have children?
No.
Did Shymel have a nickname?
Yes.
What was his nickname?
Peanut.
And is that a nickname you called him when y'all were back in Augusta?
Yes.
Now, I know you said that you all grew up together or were around each other in Augusta. Do you know if he was born in Augusta?
Yes. No, I think he was born in Atlanta, I think.
But was he raised in Augusta?
Some, partially. They was back and forth.
Okay. When they were back and forth, is that between Augusta and Atlanta?
Yes.
Do you know where in Atlanta he would stay when they were in Atlanta?
I'm not sure when he was staying with his mom, but at the time of death, he was living with me.
Okay. Back in 2022, did you ever know him to hang out in the Summer Hill neighborhood?
Yeah, I think so.
What about in Mechanicsville?
I guess that's what you call it. I'm assuming.
I want to direct your attention to March 14th, 2022. Did you have the occasion to see Shamel Drinks on that day?
Yes.
Where were you when you saw him?
Home.
At the time, where were you living?
In Douglasville.
If you were coming from downtown, how would you get to your home?
20 West.
Sitting here today, do you remember what time he came to your house, or was he at your house all day?
I don't remember the time verbatim. I just know when I got there, it's like it was almost time to get my daughter from gymnastics, and that's normally like I want to say like 6 something, but I just can't remember verbatim. But like around that time frame, I believe.
And we say 6 something, that's 6 something p.m.?
Yeah.
All right. Was he already at your home when you were getting ready to maybe get your daughter from gymnastics?
Yes.
Was he at your home with anyone?
Yes.
Do you know who?
A boy named Barter.
Had you ever met that individual, Barter, before?
No.
Do you know if Barter was a nickname or his given name?
I'm not sure.
Okay. When you were home, let me ask, did you get home and he was already there with Barter, or did he come to your house and you let him in and he came with Barter?
I kind of think that it was kind of like at the same time, or like a few minutes off. I think he had pulled up and then they were in the car, and then when I pulled up, he started coming into the house.
Did both he and Barter come inside of the house?
He was coming in first with me, telling me who it was, and then the guy was coming up.
Now, I think I may have asked you this, but I'll ask you again. Had you ever seen Barter before?
No.
Had you ever heard Shamel talk about Barter?
No.
Did you all have plans for that evening?
Yes.
What were they?
I was getting ready to cook dinner, so he was coming back home to eat and chill with me and my daughter.
And let me ask you, at the time, were y'all two dating?
Yes.
All right. Did he stay at the house
That night?
that night?
No, he never returned.
You said you had to get your daughter maybe around 6 o'clock p.m. What time did he leave your house?
I'm not sure.
Was it before you left to get your daughter or after you left to get your daughter?
He left just a couple of minutes before me.
Did you know where he was going?
He told me that he was running to the city and that he was dropping Barter off, and then he was coming back.
Was there anything that you saw or observed that kind of triggered him leaving?
Kind of, but not really. I mean, I guess like the boy kept like just trying to insert himself like, oh, you cooking? I'm staying too. Can I stay? And like he was, my niece was there. So he was trying to like court my niece or whatever. And so I want to say the phone rang, if I remember correctly. And that's how he just ended up go ahead and leaving.
Do you know whose phone rang?
Mm-mm.
Okay. When he left, did he leave with Barter?
Yes.
Did he ever make it back home?
No.
Did you at some point learn about his death?
Yes.
All right. Permission to approach, Your Honor?
Yeah.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 123VV. Do you recognize the individual 123VV?
Yes,
How do you recognize him?
that's Shamel.
Is that a fair and accurate depiction of how Shamel looked prior to his death?
Yes.
Your Honor, this time the state would like to admit 123VV into evidence.
It's admitted.
Permission to publish.
You may.
And is that Mr. Drinks?
Yes.
I have no further questions.
Any questions for this witness?
Oh, I'm sorry, Your Honor. One quick
Go ahead.
question. Have you ever heard of the name Christian Johnson?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions?
This was Sergeant Locks. I don't have any questions.
Okay. Thank you for your time. You're excused. Call your next witness.
Your Honor, court's indulgence for 1 moment.
Can you tell the jurors, in your, I guess, when you began the external review of Mr. Drinks, can you tell the jurors, did you notice, as it relates to the injuries, anything like soot or stippling?
No. However, there was what's called pseudo stippling or false stippling associated with the entrance gunshot wound of his neck.
Okay, can you explain to the jurors what is pseudo stippling and how is that created?
Yes. Well, first, soot is the combustion of gunpowder, which is associated with contact or near contact gunshot wounds. Gunpowder stippling refers to the burning and unburned grains of gunpowder, which can impact on the skin around an entrance gunshot wound. They look like red pinpoint, very small abrasions. This is characteristic of close range or intermediate range gunshot wounds. In this case, the investigative information and the scene findings I had was that Mr. Drinks was found deceased within a vehicle, and that there were gunshot wound defects noted in the car doors, the front door, the front driver's door, the front passenger door, as well as the front passenger's windshield. So he had what's called pseudo stippling, so it's not gunpowder stippling, but there were larger irregular abrasions which were associated with the entrance gunshot wound of the neck. So what that tells you is, in conjunction with the scene findings, that when a bullet passes through an intermediary target, say the bullet passes through a wall or a window prior to striking the victim, that can fragment the bullet, and those bullet fragments can impact on the skin around the entrance wound, or it can fragment the intermediary object itself, the door, the window. So those fragments can impact. So there were those irregular fragments of either the intermediary target or the projectile around the entrance wound of the neck.
And the irregularly, can't say that word this morning, the irregular, the things that you found to be not normal, I guess. My mouth is not going to say that word today. Can you tell us, in State's Exhibit 138VB, can you point out to the jury what you are talking about as it relates to the pseudo stippling?
Yes, it's easier to see on what's termed the clean photograph. Photographs of wounds are taken before cleaning the body and after.
Yes.
But
145VV, if that will help assist.
Yes, if you can look at the top of the photograph, when we see the outline of his mandible or his lower jaw, I think you can appreciate there are some irregular red or dark areas that are associated around his mandible. and also around the what's termed the mastoid process, this bump that you feel at the base of the skull. So those are characteristic of what's called pseudo-stippling. So they're fragments of the intermediary target.
Now, can you tell the jurors how does that affect your ability to determine, I guess, the range of fire, or how far a barrel of a gun is from the gunshot wound that we're looking at here in State's Exhibit 145, Victor Victor?
Well, once a projectile has passed through an intermediary target before striking the victim, the medical examiner is not able to determine that distance. Say if there is the shooter, a door, and the victim, the medical examiner is not able to determine whether the shot was fired immediately next to the door or 30 feet, 50 feet, or more away from the door. So it's termed indeterminate range. In other words, you don't know the range of fire through an intermediary target. So this was indeterminate range through an intermediary target. That's the range of fire.
So the findings that you just talked about, are they consistent with someone being shot while in a vehicle?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you talked about in State's Exhibit 145 BV that this wound on the neck was an entrance wound. Can you tell the jurors, is there an exit wound associated with this injury, this shot to the neck?
There was not. The bullet was retained within the body.
Okay. And I should have asked you this first. In the exhibit we're looking at in 145 BV, can you tell the jurors what side of Mr. Drink's body is this gunshot wound to the neck?
This is the right side of the neck.
Okay. This would be the side that's, I guess, closest to, if you're sitting in the driver's seat of a vehicle, to the passenger, I guess, compartment.
Correct, yes.
Now, can you tell the jurors, if there is no exit wound, can you explain to the jurors, were you able to determine during the external and internal portions of the autopsy that you performed the pathway of travel of the projectile or bullet through Mr. Drink's neck and into his body?
Yes, the bullet entered the right side of the neck. It was going upward, in other words, towards the top of Mr. Drink's head and to his left. So the bullet passed through the soft tissue of the neck and impacted the base of the skull, fractured the base of the skull, and caused bleeding within the brain case, and also caused a small laceration of the base of the brain.
Now, Doctor, can you explain to the jurors when someone receives a traumatic injury like this, and you said it goes through Mr. Drink's neck, it fractures the base of his skull, and does it travel upward?
Yes, it was traveling upward.
Okay. The areas of the brain that you just described that the pathway of travel is for the projectile, can you tell the jury what areas of the brain is affected and what motor skills does it affect as it relates to someone who is shot in this manner?
Well, in this case, the bullet fracturing the base of the skull, this represents a massive injury to the skull and also to the brain. It caused bleeding on the surface and within the brain. And whenever there is massive trauma such as this to the brain, consciousness is lost immediately. However, I could not determine whether this shot was instantly fatal or if Mr. Drink still had some cardiac and respiratory activity for some undetermined period of time. Sometimes with these catastrophic injuries to the brain can send out a signal to the heart, which causes the heart to either stop beating immediately or to go into a lethal rhythm. So consciousness would have been lost immediately, but whether death was instantaneous or there was some cardiac activity or breathing activity for some period of time, I couldn't determine.
And can you explain to the jury, based on the circumstances you kind of just described, what does, I know you described what the brain, the message that is sent to the heart. Can you explain to the jurors, are there other things that the body does under these circumstances? And I mean, are there any involuntary actions that the body can produce as it relates to someone who was shot in this manner?
Well, if there was still cardiac and respiratory activity, then there could have been obviously breathing. As people are dying, they can exhibit abnormal patterns of breathing. So I'm not sure if that's what you're referring to.
And I guess I'll give you an example. In an instance where someone is shot like this, and can someone's hands clench and it remain clenched because of the immediate traumatic injury that they received to their brain?
It's possible, yes.
Now, as it relates to the direction of travel, if Mr. Drink's head is tilted to the left and he's shot from the right side through the passenger door, would that be consistent with, I guess, why the projectile would travel upward?
Yes. And just a clarification, when I talk of the direction of the bullet, that means the direction of the bullet once it enters the body. I'm not able to determine direction of the position of the gun or the shooter from that.
Okay. And so if the bullet enters the right side of his neck, it travels upward. Can you explain to the jurors where the bullet ended within the head cavity of Mr. Drinks?
Yes, the bullet was recovered within the fractured base of the skull.
I want to ask you about this concept of stippling and pseudo-stippling first, okay? Now, you're not saying that stippling's involved in this case, you're saying pseudo-stippling.
Yes.
Which could have been caused by the projectile fragmenting and the low pieces embedding in or affecting Mr. Drinks' skin, or little pieces of the intermediate object, perhaps a window or something like that.
Or door, yes, sir.
Okay. And I'm not talking about the pseudo-stippling that you found in this case. I'm just talking in general. When we're talking about stippling, I just want to clarify something. Stippling, you're saying, is caused by burns around a gunshot wound when it's a close and range shot.
Yes. When one says stippling, it typically means gunpowder stippling, but yes, that's correct.
Okay, and you're saying gunpowder stippling, and that's just what I want to clarify. The stippling is caused by gunpowder soot that is ejected out the barrel of the gun and would affect the skin of the unfortunate decedent, correct?
Yes, gunpowder stippling represents the burning and unburned grains of gunpowder, which exit the barrel and can impact on the skin in a close-range gunshot wound. Okay,
and I know you're not an expert in gunshot residue testing or anything like that, but I just want to clarify. These are two different concepts, correct?
That's correct.
Gunpowder stippling and then gunshot residue testing, where you would test an area or a specific object for the presence of gunshot residue. Those are two separate concepts, both involving gunshot residue.
Well, the determination of gunpowder stippling at autopsy, yes, is done by the medical examiner.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Now, in this case, as I understand, there were two gunshot wounds that you observed.
Yes.
Okay. One to the arm, to the forearm, and one to the neck.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. The lethal wound was the wound to the neck.
That's correct.
Okay. And as the medical examiner, you do not know what order those two shots occurred.
That is correct. I do not know the
so
order.
Mr. Drinks could have been shot in the arm first or in the neck first.
That's correct.
Okay. And I want to talk specifically about the lethal wound to the neck. Okay. You talked and used medical terms, and it sounds like there was massive injury to the base of the brain, among other things.
The skull and the brain, yes, sir.
Okay. And you testified, to my understanding, that the ability to consciously control one's body would be immediately lost.
That's correct.
Okay. Death may not be immediate, but the ability to move body parts, to open a door, to move your feet up and down, things of that nature would be immediately lost.
Yes, conscious movement would have been immediately lost. Yes.
Okay, and we're not talking about within a minute, we're talking about immediate because of the severance of the, because the base of the brain was
Because of the
severed.
massive damage to the skull and the brain, yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I have no further questions.
Anything, Mr. Watson? Okay, any redirect?
Very great. Dr. Stanley, if after receiving a gunshot wound to the neck, as Mr. Drinks did, and prior to being shot, he had his foot compressed on the brake, is it possible, or is it consistent with the fact, would his foot remain on the brake? Is that possible?
After sustaining the gunshot wound to the neck?
Yes.
Yes, that's possible.
Okay. Now, you said earlier that the direction of travel was upward. Can you explain to the jury, was it upward to the left, upward to the right? Can you explain that?
Yes. Again, this direction is simply from the time that the bullet enters the body. It went towards his head, which is upward, and towards his left, upward and to the left.
And I want to ask you one last question. When someone is shot, would you expect to find gunshot residue on that person?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
You may.
So Shannon pulls up right here. This is Shannon. He's going to back in.
So the Audi comes in, backs into the parking space.
And looking at the bottom of the video, is there a timestamp on the video? Can you see the timestamp?
Yes, it says 21:51, which is, it's 9:50, 9:51 p.m.
And is it on March 14, 2022?
Yes.
Next, we're going to see Nichols. He pulls up to a gas pump, and you're going to notice that Nichols gets out of the driver's side, of course, because he's driving, but Farley gets out of the driver's side back seat. He does not get out of the passenger side, so there's probably somebody in the passenger side seat, but that person never gets out. Might be Garlington. We don't know.
He's followed inside a short time later by the driver's side rear passenger.
And what time is it now? This is the time.
It says 21, when the camera changed it, went to change to 21:50 on the March 14th, 2022. See the car backing into the space outside the window. See the tail lights on the car.
And again, that's it with the Audi, correct?
That's correct. That's the Audi that backed into the front just prior to the Fusion arriving. At some point, you can see it. It's hard to see, but you can see through the window that the driver's side door opens. And the driver steps out and walks inside. You can follow him from this angle, follow him to the front door, and it's the young man wearing a pink hat and glasses.
Shannon enters the gas station.
So that's at 20:51, and then shortly thereafter, the driver of the Ford Fusion comes in.
And did you mean 21:51 or 9:51?
That's correct. That's what I said. I probably said that.
And at the time, did you know the names of any of these individuals who were in these videos at all?
I had no idea.
Nichols enters the gas station.
21:52, 11 seconds or thereabouts. Driver the Fusion in the beige jacket and the hoodie, green hoodie coming in. He comes in and he buys something for the driver of the Audi in the pink hat. And the passenger from the Ford Fusion comes
Farley
in,
enters the gas station.
and the driver of the Audi
Shannon
interacts
jump
with
scares Farley.
indicated to me that they knew each other. And then the passenger.
All three leave the gas station.
The other two drivers. Okay, now we're back at 21:53. 9:53. The driver of the Fusion and the passenger.
Farley goes and talks to the people in this white car with a black top, but it probably isn't the driver because the driver's going to come out in a second.
I'll get back in the car and sit there for a few minutes.
Driver of the white car with the black top.
And what time is it now?
21:54, 20 seconds. It's 9:54. It's almost 10 o'clock. On the same day. Driver of the Fusion is out.
Nichols goes back into the gas station.
9:54 time.
That's correct. 9:54. Makes a purchase.
Drinks pulls up. Looks like he doesn't know he's right beside
That's
Nichols.
correct. So Mr.
But
Drinks arrives
you be the
as
judge.
driver of the Ford Fusion is walking back to his car.
And what time is it now?
It's at 21:56. I believe, yep, 21:56 on the same day. 4 minutes.
Car door opens and closes repeatedly. Some suggest they might be dumping the tobacco out of the blunt.
And has the driver of the Ford Fusion already gotten back into the car?
Yes, ma'am. He's returned to his driver's seat, and they sit there. Both the Fusion and the Audi sit there until Mr. Drinks leaves.
Drinks goes
Drink
into the gas station.
To the store, makes a purchase.
And what time is it now?
21:57 on the same day.
And at this juncture has the Ford Fusion been sitting idle for approximately since about 21:56 p.m.
Sure, yes.
And the Audi, have you seen any more activity since 21:54, 21:55?
No, ma'am.
As Drinks makes his purchase, this is the guy that Sharp says is having some kind of dispute with the cashier. The guy who was having a dispute calls Drinks over. Drinks comes over. Looks like he helps him resolve the issue. And now as Drinks is leaving the gas station, he's waiting for the guy who's having the dispute, and they leave out together.
Mr. Drinks leaves.
And what time is it now?
21:59. We're at 21:58 now on the camera 19. $21.59. There's Mr. Drinks exiting the store.
So the guy who was having a dispute, he walks off. It looks like he just walks off into the nighttime. Drinks is going to, looks like he tries to open up his gas tank, but his trunk pops instead. He closes the trunk and then reaches back in the car, opens the gas tank, starts to pump gas. It looks like he doesn't know this whole time that he's standing right next to Nichols. Now, this is something I found suspicious. Take a look at this white car here. The passenger gets out of the passenger side, walks around the back of the car, and gets in the driver's side. A lot of people said, well, you know, I do that. That's how I change seats and whatnot. Maybe, but do you pull up to a gas pump to do that? Nobody goes into the gas station if you just keep your eyes trained on this car. Nobody goes into the gas station. Nobody comes out of the gas station to get in the car. Nobody pumps any gas. There's no transaction at all with the gas station. Somebody gets out of the passenger side, walks around the car, gets in the driver's side.
And what time is it now?
So it's 10 o'clock, 2200.
And is it 22:01 or 10:01 p.m.?
It's 22:01 right now on the video.
And
Drinks pulls off.
pulled off at approximately 10:01 p.m. in the video.
Yes.
And is it only then that the white Audi pulled off?
That's correct.
It has the white Audi.
Shannon is the next car out of the gas station, followed by Nichols.
Yes. And then the Fusion as well.
And has that been sitting idle for about 5 minutes prior to the pulling off?
Yes.
Now here's the direction they're traveling. They just pulled out of the BP, which is at the bottom. You're going to see video next where they go past the King Liquor. That's the side view. And they're going north, as in seen on this map. They're going up toward the light at the top. And the final video is going to be from the FedEx, which looks like it's pointing toward the light, but it's not very good video.
This camera is capturing images. The metadata on that, it says it's not a military time. The red car go by at 10:01. Followed by the white car at 10:01 in some seconds. And then the third car.
The problem is they cut the video and we don't see what other cars may follow.
This is from the FedEx building. It's on the west side of Windsor. The top left-hand corner is where you see the light shining. That's the intersection, the red light intersection just before you go under I-20 at Windsor Street.
And is this the light right here where the hand is circling?
Yes. The car that just pulled up to the light now is stopped. That's the red vehicle.
This car right here?
Yes. The Audi, the first car to follow the red car out is the Audi, the white Audi. It's right next to it.
That right here?
Yes. And then the Ford Fusion is right to the right of that.
One thing I think is that he wasn't correct. The Fusion driven by Nichols does not immediately pull up to the right of Shannon Stillwell. First he pulls up behind him, and then you can see him go around and go to the right.
There's traffic now trying to go onto I-20 eastbound.
And so the car where Mr. Drinks and the two white cars are a red light.
That's correct. It's red light now.
Some
Audi
people say that
takes off
here,
through
when this
traffic,
third car pulls up, they see muzzle flashes
red light,
inside the car. I
as
don't
well
know.
as
I don't
the-
see that.
the white car.
I see a lot of lights. The lights are coming from every different direction. But some people say that they see that.
Well, the
So
Audi did. Yes,
maybe
ma'am.
they do.
And was there still oncoming traffic coming as they were going through that light?
Yes, there was. And then that car did a U-turn, which is a little odd.
Hearing people say that a person shows up, and I didn't see it, but look at this super slowed down. It does look like a person walks around behind Drink's car. This is very strange. It looks like there's a person there or some sort of something that's moving that looks like the size of a human right there. That's weird.
Why do you say it was odd?
I don't know if that what they witnessed or if they heard anything, but it's suspicious to me that at that particular time, since the red car no longer does not move, and it was around the same time that the murder occurred, that vehicle might have been privy to some information. It's my assumption.
Were you ever able to locate or find it?
Say again?
Were you ever able to determine what vehicle that was that made
No, no, ma'am. No, ma'am.
Now, when you approached the vehicle, the red vehicle, when you got on scene, were there any defects to the back of the vehicle?
They were all, all were on the driver's side.
But driver's side or passenger side?
I'm sorry, the passenger side of the vehicle, yes.
Seems to be a person walking right here as well.
And is now the car still stationary?
Yes, it stays, it does not move anymore. It stays there till we get there.
I'm going to play this one more time in regular speed and without zooming in. There are a lot of theories. It seems like the going theory is that Stillwell and Nichols pull up. Then as they drive off, the third car pulls up, maybe does the do, and the fourth car maybe hears something and sees something, bucks at you to get out of Dodge. That seems to be the going theory right now, and I think it's enough for reasonable doubt. Do we know what happens? No. We have people, not everybody, we have a lot of people saying, oh, this is what happened. We don't know what happened. But it's definitely enough in my mind for reasonable doubt.
Yes, there's traffic now trying to go onto I-20 eastbound.
And so the car where Mr. Drinks and the two white cars are a red light?
That's correct. It's a red light now. And the Audi takes off through traffic, through the red light, as well as the white car. The Fusion.
So the Audi and Fusion go through the red light?
Well, the Audi did, yes, ma'am.
And was there still oncoming traffic coming as they were going through that light?
Yes, there was. And then that car did a U-turn, which is a little odd.
Why do you say it was odd?
I don't know if what they witnessed or if they heard anything, but it's suspicious to me that at that particular time, since the red car no longer does not move, and it was around the same time that
reason why someone would rent a car.
I don't see why not. Sure.
Could that be a reason why someone would repeatedly rent cars for years, switch them up, so people couldn't track him down and kill him? Could that be a reason?
Assuming fake evidence.
Overruled.
Could that be a reason?
Sure.
How about an individual whose friends had just been gunned down 3 days prior? Could you envision a situation where that individual would want to rent a car so no one knows what he's driving?
Objection, speculation.
Overruled.
Yes.
Okay. And tinted windows. You said tinted windows can be used to commit crimes because you can't see in as well. Could conceal an identity.
That's correct. That's what I said, yes.
By that same logic, couldn't tinted windows keep people who are trying to kill you off of your scent, off of knowing what you're driving?
Yes.
Especially 3 days after they have murdered 2 of your friends in cold blood?
Sure.
Could that be another reason why someone would rent a car?
Yes.
Could that be a reason why someone would rent a car and break a rental agreement and put tint on those windows?
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. This warrant that you took out, sir, for the rest of Mr. Stillwell, you charged him with murder, the murder of Shamal Drinks, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And you specifically charged him with the shooting of Shamal Drinks, correct?
I'd have to look at the wording, but I think he used the word partaking.
May I approach, Your Honor?
You may.
Would looking at a copy of the warrant that you took out assist you in remembering the wording?
Sure.
Grab the wrong one. Got it.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. And just refresh your recollection, and if after your recollection is refreshed, if you could look up.
Sure. Yes.
Okay. And in fairness, you did say participate.
Yes.
In the warrant, but you said by shooting Shamal Drinks.
That's correct.
Okay. On 3/14/2022.
That's correct.
Okay. So specifically, your allegation in that warrant is that Mr. Stillwell was the shooter of Shamal Drinks, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And we've talked about some of the evidence that you think you have on this case. Let's just call it what it is. I know that we've been referring to the man in the pink hat, okay, or the man with the slime or die shirt. You have BP video from the corner of Windsor and Fulton Street, correct?
Yes.
Clear video.
It's very good, yeah.
And it shows my client wearing a Pink Floyd hoodie and a pink hat. And it shows Mr. Quamarvius Nichols, correct?
Yes.
And it shows Mr. Miles Farley, correct?
Yes.
Okay, cool. And you had that video, and then you also have these rental records of renting the car on that day. Now, let me ask you this. Is there any indication at all, if we're talking about planning something, is there any indication at all that anyone would have known that Shamal Drinks was going to show up at the gas station at that time?
No.
Okay.
Not that I know of.
Okay. Do you know where Shamal Drinks was coming from?
No.
Okay. And then you have video from the FedEx, correct?
I do.
Okay, and that shows Windsor Street.
Yes.
And you maintain that that video shows that my client in his white Audi pulled up next to Shamal Drinks' car.
Yes.
And you maintain that that video shows that my client shot Shamal Drinks.
Participated, yes.
Okay. I mean, your theory is that my client was driving.
Yes.
Okay. And your theory is that the shot was fired out of the driver's side of the car.
Oh, the Audi, yes.
Yeah. Your theory is that Shannon Stillwell was in that white Audi and shot Shamal Drinks at that stoplight.
Yes.
And your contention is that video, that FedEx video, will back that up, ultimately.
That's my conclusion from my investigation, yes.
Okay, cool. All right, so let's go back to where this investigation started. Evening of 3/14/22.
Okay.
Okay? And you see this red car with this gentleman inside who's sadly deceased, correct?
Yes. Yes.
And you arrived before the body was removed, correct?
That's right.
Okay. Now, this is your crime scene. I know that you weren't the first one there, were you?
No.
Okay, but this is your crime scene.
Yes.
So you're in charge of knowing the status of the crime scene and where everything was at the time it was first discovered.
Ultimately, yes, I am.
Okay. So, let me ask you. The Nissan Versa, the red Nissan Versa, before anyone came to the assistance before Mr. Cheeseborough showed up, was that car still on?
When I was there, I don't remember it being running, no.
No, I'm asking, since it's your crime scene, when the first people showed up. To your understanding, it's your investigation.
I wasn't.
Speculation calls for hearsay.
Is he the lead detective?
Yes,
Okay, well, overruled on the speculation, and would your report contain all of that?
It doesn't, if the car was on or not. I know the lights were on. As far as the car was running, the door was open when I got there.
That's the next thing I'm going to ask you.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're not
Sounds
certain.
like he didn't know.
So you're not certain. Okay, so the car was running. Or is
Obviously,
that what you're not certain of?
Obviously, it was running when he pulled into the stoplight. When I got there, I don't recall if it was running. I know the lights were on, the door was open. I don't recall if the car was still running or not.
When you got there, the lights of the car were on and the door was open.
The lights were on.
Right, the lights of the car were on and the door is open. When we say the door, we're talking about the driver's side.
That's correct.
Front door. Okay. Now my question is, before you got there, before anyone got there, was that door open? That front driver's side door to the Versa?
It's my understanding it stayed closed until the paramedics or EMTs opened the door to check on the victim.
Okay. How about Mr. Drinks's feet? Were they on the brake?
I believe they were, yes.
How about the gas? Was 1 foot on the brake and 1 foot on the gas?
I don't recall that.
You don't know, or are you saying no, that's not true?
I don't know.
Okay. Fair enough. And when one of your first tasks was to determine the identity of this gentleman, correct?
It's one of the first things, yes.
Okay, and you weren't the only one there. There were other officers there, correct?
Yes.
And among those officers was representative from the gang unit, correct?
Yes.
Okay, Investigator Flores?
May have been. I don't recall.
Okay. Either way, even with the assistance of the gang unit on scene and all APD resources, no one recognized this gentleman, Mr. Drinks.
He was not officially identified until we did the fingerprint scan.
Right. And that was about 1:06 a.m. that next morning, correct?
It was while we were on scene. I don't know exactly what time it was.
Okay. Fair enough. Miss Hilton, if you could do me a favor, please. Could you publish... I'm sorry. Mr. Abadi said he was going to help me. You're going to help me with something else. Thank you. 107 Victor. Thank you, Miss Knight. Cell phone, do you see that cell phone in Exhibit 107 Victor?
Is it the one in the pocket there? Is that what that is? Yes, I see it. Oh, it's on his arm. I do, yes. Plugged in.
Do you see that cell phone?
I do, yes.
Okay. As an investigator of homicides, do you often collect cellular phones?
Yes.
And that's from victims and suspects, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and the reality is cell phones, if you're able to get into the cell phones and have authorization to get into cell phones, they have a wealth of information, correct?
Sometimes they do, yes.
They can have call logs. They can have contacts, correct?
Yes.
They can potentially have tracking information, who you're in contact with. Places you've been.
Yes.
You can learn a lot about a person from a cell phone, correct?
Yes, you can.
You can learn who their friends are.
Yes.
You can learn who their enemies are, potentially.
Potentially, yes.
Okay. In this case, as lead investigator, you are aware that actually 2 cell phones belonging to my client have been seized in this case, correct?
I believe so, yes.
And their contents have been extracted, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, Mr. Drinks, as lead investigator, did you ask the crime scene tech or crime scene tech Davis or any other individuals to seize or to collect Mr. Drinks' cell phone?
Yes.
Okay. And were you ever able to analyze the contents of Mr. Drinks' cell phone?
I don't recall that, no.
Okay. You don't recall ever seeing the contents?
No.
Okay. So as far as you recall, we don't know who is in Mr. Drinks' contacts?
No.
We don't know what he's been texting about leading up to this incident?
No, I'm not aware of it.
Okay. We don't know of anyone that he's had disagreements with or squabbles with or anything like that from his cell phone?
I'm not aware of any of that, no.
Okay, and you're not aware because not saying that none of that exists in his cell phone, but you just haven't seen the contents of his cell phone.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. I want to talk to you about these videos, if that's okay.
Sure.
And Mr. Abate, I'm going to ask you to just be on standby in case I need to publish anything. Thank you. Detective, we had the BP video.
That's correct.
Several different camera angles.
That's correct.
Okay. Including outside at the pumps, inside the store from different angles.
That's correct.
Okay. We had the King's Liquor video.
Yes.
The surveillance video. And then we had the FedEx video.
That's correct.
Okay. Let's talk about the BP video first. And I'm not going to replay all the videos. You see my client, Shannon Stillwell, in the pink hoodie and pink hat, arrive in the white Audi, correct?
Yes.
In the white Audi that was rented in his name.
That's correct.
In the white Audi that he told Investigator Viverito on March 16th, yeah, that's the Audi I'm driving, correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. And it did have tinted windows, didn't it?
Yes.
All right. You see him arrive at the store, and then you see Mr. Quamarvius Nichols arrive in a Ford Fusion shortly thereafter, correct?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Nichols pumps gas.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Farley is an occupant of Mr. Nichols' car, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, they all enter the store. They're on video.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Farley's wearing a Slime or Die shirt.
That's correct.
Okay. Do you know anything about Mr. Farley's background or history?
No, sir.
Okay. Do you know that he's a clothing designer?
No idea.
That he creates those shirts, those slime shirts, and sells them to the public?
Okay.
Okay. You were not aware of that before today?
No, sir.
Okay. So you see those 3 individuals go in and out of the store. First, you see Mr. Nichols go up to the register with Mr. Stillwell, correct?
That's correct.
All right. And in these videos, in all these videos, you don't see anyone with a handgun or anything like that.
No, sir.
You don't see anyone that seems to be irate or upset, do you?
No.
Well, maybe some people in the store, but not these 3 individuals.
That's correct, yes.
All right. You see Mr. Nichols make a purchase and buy some gum for Mr. Stillwell, correct?
Yeah, he bought something for him. I couldn't tell what it was.
Okay.
But yeah, he did buy
And this is
something.
the first time Mr. Nichols was in the store, before he pumped his gas,
That's
correct?
correct. That's correct.
And you see Mr. Nichols joking around with the clerk acting like he's pulling out all these bills.
Right.
And then you see Mr. Farley come in.
Yes.
And you see Mr. Stillwell turn around on Mr. Farley and act like a monster and kind of scare Mr. Farley. And Mr. Farley does this weird pirouette.
Right, yes.
They're playing around.
That's correct.
Okay. Everyone seems, from the video, no one seems upset.
No.
Okay. Later on, you see Mr. Nichols come back in the store to make another purchase, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know what he purchases?
No.
Okay. Ms. Hilton, I'm going to ask if you could play the video of where Mr. Nichols comes into the store for the second time and makes a purchase. If you could play that. Are you able to see what he is purchasing?
It looked to me to be like some Black and Milds, maybe.
Okay.
That's a guess. I don't know.
Okay, appreciate that answer, and I know that it's noted that it's just a guess. And you can stop. Thank you. Your Honor, may I approach with DS-56?
You may.
Sir, I'm approaching you with what's been marked as DS-56. Do you recognize that image?
Yeah, it's an image from the series of video we just watched.
Okay. That's a still image from the video we just watched?
It appears to be so, yes.
Okay. And is that a fair and accurate representation of the video we just watched?
Sure.
Image from the video we just watched?
Sure, yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Your Honor, at this time I would move to admit DS-56 into evidence.
No objection.
It's admitted.
Permission to publish?
You may.
Could those be backwoods blunts?
Yes.
Okay. And do you know what backwoods are?
So like a little cigar, isn't it? Something like that.
Okay. Is it also something from your experience that can be gutted and used to roll a marijuana blunt?
Yes.
Okay. How long, to your knowledge, if you know, have you ever seen anyone, we'll just say on video, through police, through detective work, have you ever seen anyone roll a marijuana blunt?
I'm aware of how it's done. I've never witnessed it.
Okay. It takes some time, correct?
I would
Depending on
assume.
how experienced you are?
Yeah, I would assume it would, yes.
Okay. And is this purchase made right before Mr. Nichols returns to his car?
Yes.
When he's sitting there for like 4 minutes as idle, as Miss Hilton said?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know, yes or no, whether what was going on in that car with Mr. Nichols was Mr. Nichols was sitting there using those backwoods to roll himself a marijuana blunt? Do you know?
I don't know.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, in the entire BP video, we see Shamal Drinks show up, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and again, no indication that anyone was expecting him to show up.
No.
Okay. While Shamal Drinks was present at the BP, he walks into the store, correct?
He does.
How many times does he walk in the store? Once or twice?
Just once.
Okay. And he makes a purchase.
Correct.
And there's apparently some other man on the video that's trying to steal some condoms or something, and the clerk is having a problem with him, correct?
Yeah, there's a little kerfuffle.
Okay.
Sustained.
Do you see a man getting into it with the clerk and then suddenly pulling condoms out of his pocket and throwing them back at the cashier?
I remember that interaction. I don't know his condoms, but yeah.
Okay. And then Mr. Drinks has some interaction with that individual, and they leave together at the store.
Yes.
Okay. Do you know who that person is? The person that Mr. Drinks was interacting with?
Do not.
Okay. Have you ever interviewed the clerk about what was going on in the store?
No.
Do you know who the clerk was?
No.
Okay. Throughout the entire time that Mr. Drinks is on the video, and quite frankly, Mr. Stillwell is on the video at the BP, Mr. Farley, or Mr. Nichols, do you see any interaction between Mr. Drinks and any of those three individuals?
No.
Do you see any hostility between Mr. Drinks and those three individuals?
No.
Okay, Mr. Drinks was having some hostility with the clerk, right?
He was observing that, but yes.
Okay. But not with these individuals. You don't see any mean looks or anything, do you?
No.
Okay. So then we go to the King liquor store video.
Gotcha.
Okay? And just to be clear, do you know how we have timestamps on some of these videos and no timestamps on other videos, right?
Yes.
Okay. The videos that have timestamps, and I understand that King Liquor and the BP are under the same management, right? You don't know?
Not privy. It makes sense, but
Okay.
I'm not privy to that.
All right, but do you have any reason to believe that the BP video, the timestamps would match perfectly with the timestamps, or they're perfectly synced up with the FedEx video, for instance?
Oh, I don't know.
Okay. And do you have any reason to believe that any of these videos would be perfectly synced up with phone records or anything like that? Like records held by Sprint or another phone company?
No.
In your experience as an investigator, businesses that have these surveillance systems, there are times, you know, you can get an hour of footage, but the time on that footage can be off, correct?
It can be, yes. Okay. Not set correctly, yes.
Okay. All right. In the BP video, besides the Ford Fusion, the Nissan Versa, and the Audi, did you note any other vehicles of interest that piqued your curiosity in the BP video?
No.
Okay. How about in the King's Liquor video when you see 3 cars driving up Windsor Street? Did you see any other cars that piqued your curiosity?
No.
Okay. Let's talk about the FedEx video. We do see the red Versa go up to the left lane, correct?
Yes, we do.
And we do see what appears to be the white Audi, and especially when you link it up with the BP video, end up in the center lane, correct?
That's correct.
And then we do see the white Ford Fusion end up in the right lane.
Yes.
And we do see the white Audi run a red light, don't we?
We do.
Okay.
Sorry.
Do you know anything about the history of the attempts on Mr. Stillwell's life?
I do not.
Okay. You don't know that in 2015 a car gunned up behind him or sped up behind the car that he was in and riddled the back of that car with bullet holes?
Objection, he said he doesn't know about any attempts on Mr. Stillwell.
Sustained.
Have you ever heard the name T.R. Jones?
No.
Okay. Anyways, you see Mr. Stillwell run that red light in the white Audi.
I do, yes.
And then you see Mr. Nichols in the Ford Fusion run the same red light.
Yes.
Okay, cool. In that video, we see I'll get there in a second. Let's talk about LPRs. Detective Bender helped you with the LPRs in this case, correct?
She did, yes.
And you consider this an important part of police work because you're able to track the movements of specific cars.
Yes.
And you, at that time, felt that the white Audi was a suspect car, correct?
I did.
And you wanted to track its movements.
Yes.
And you thought the white Ford Fusion was a suspect car.
I did.
And you wanted to track its movements.
I did.
And Detective Bender was able to get you all that information about the movements of those cars, or I shouldn't say the movements, but different places in time and different times where the LPRs picked up those license plates throughout those 2 days that you ran them. I believe it was 2 days.
Yes. Whatever she found, she was able to identify the tag numbers and the cars and where they were. Yes.
Okay. As lead investigator, besides the Versa, besides the Audi, and besides the Fusion, did you ask Detective Bender to run LPRs on any other specific cars that you may or may not have seen in any of those videos?
I couldn't ask her to run something I didn't see, and there was no other cars. No.
No other cars that piqued your interest?
No, sir.
Okay. All right. You were able to obtain the rental agreement for this Audi, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you're aware that Mr. Stillwell rented this car on 3/14 at approximately 3 in the afternoon?
Well, let me check. Yes. That's correct.
And you are aware that he gave all of his personal information, his license, his signature, his phone number, his address. He appeared on surveillance at the Alamo. He did all those things while renting that car.
Yes.
And you're aware that in the early morning of March 16th, which would be 2 days after this incident, Investigator Viverito and Investigator Flores spoke to him in the back of a police car after the house he was in was shot up, correct?
Yes.
And they took pictures, right?
Yes.
And you're aware that he told Investigator Viverito, yes, that's the car I'm driving.
He did.
And you're also aware from the Alamo records that later on March 16th, 2022, he actually called Alamo to extend his rental on that car until March 20th, correct?
I wasn't aware of that.
Okay. Could you look at your investigative summary, if you would? And I'm going to refer you to page 19.
Okay.
Okay, does page 19, it's page 19 of 25.
Yes. Yeah, at the very top you're talking about?
I'm about 2/3 of the way down. Do you see a notation, 16 March 2022, 1337, Shannon wants to extend the rental or the rent?
Yes, I do see that.
Okay. And then at 1337, they talk about a rate, and then Shannon agrees.
That's correct.
Okay, so under your theory, my client appeared on video at the BP with this rental, is on video shooting man out of the driver's side of this rental, and then 2 days later is telling investigator Viverito, that's my car, right?
Yes.
And then also later on March 16th, seeks not to get rid of this car, but to extend the rental.
It appears so, yes, sir.
Okay. All right, let's talk about gunshot residue. You testified earlier in this case, and we talked a little bit about gunshot residue, right?
Yeah, we did.
And you said you got to be careful about gunshot residue because of the false positives.
Right, yeah. You could be
Okay.
anywhere in the room. If a gunshot goes off, we all in here would have gunshot residue on us.
Right. We're talking about microscopic particles.
That's correct.
That are expelled out of a vehicle, out of a firearm when a firearm is shot.
That's right.
Okay. And these particles are expelled in a way that you just said, if someone shot a gun in here, we could all have gunshot residue on us.
That's correct.
Okay, and that would be unfair if I shot a gun to say, well, you have gunshot residue on you, because that would be a false positive on you.
That's correct.
Okay, but gunshot residue does detect if a gunshot was fired in the area, correct?
Yes, it's evidence of that a gunshot was in the area, right?
All right, especially in fabrics and cloth and things of that nature, correct?
That would make sense to me, but I'm not an expert on it. But yes.
Okay. Well, those type of materials would not be subject to something like hands, where you could sweat the gunshot residue off, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And in this case, that FedEx video that you viewed, we see traffic lights, right?
Yes.
We can see brake lights, correct?
Yes.
We can see headlights, correct?
Yes.
What we don't see is a muzzle flash, do we?
No.
Okay. Now, you testified about shell casings.
Yep.
And you said you looked all over for shell casings on the scene.
We did, yes.
And shell casings are the cartridges that are expelled when a gun is fired.
That's correct.
Okay, and there were at least 2 or 3 shots fired just from looking at Mr. Drinks' the red Versa, correct?
At least, yes.
Okay, so you were looking for 2 or 3 or possibly more shell casings on the road, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and you didn't find any?
None.
And your conclusion was, of course, maybe you missed them. That's always a possibility. But the other possibility, as you stated in direct, is the person who's shooting the gun didn't put the gun outside of the car where you would see the muzzle flash. The gun was actually inside the car when it was fired, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and certainly if the gun is inside the car, that would cause gunshot residue to be spread throughout the car.
You assume so, yes, sir.
Including the headliner, correct?
Yes.
Okay. You decided to collect the headliner.
Say again?
Well, let me ask you that because I don't know that for certain. You worked along with CS crime scene technician Antoinette Green to process this car, correct? The car being the Audi. Mr. Stilwell was arrested on March 17th.
I'm trying to recall, because it's not in my report. I knew you were going to, but I don't. Do you have anything to refresh my memory? Do you have a crime scene report with my name on it? Because I don't.
I don't have anything written by you, sir.
Yeah, I don't.
Okay, but let's try to work through this. On March 17th, you know that Mr. Stillwell was arrested.
Yes.
On the warrants that you brought on March 16th.
Yes.
Okay, and he was arrested in Atlanta. He wasn't in another state or anything like that, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. And when he was arrested, he was actually still in the white Audi that he had extended the rental for, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And the Audi was collected as evidence, correct? Brought to police impound.
That's procedure, yes.
Okay. Are you not aware that crime scene technician Green, do you know who Antoinette Green is? Is she a crime scene technician with APD?
Yes.
Are you aware that she processed that car?
I don't recall for sure. I know I've done several cars with her before, but in this particular case, I don't recall being with her to process the car.
Do you, understood.
This particular car.
Do you recall a headliner was collected in this case, correct? You do know that?
I do not.
You don't know that the headliner of the Audi was collected as evidence in this case and analyzed?
It makes sense that it would be, but I don't.
Okay.
I don't recall that, no, sir.
In your experience, your expertise as an investigator, a homicide investigator, a headliner would be a very appropriate piece of the car to collect to check for gunshot residue.
Again, yes, sir. It makes sense. I'm sorry, I don't recall.
And it should have gunshot residue in it if a gun is fired from within that car, correct?
If it has not been cleaned, yes.
Okay. All right. Do you know, as we sit here today, whether or not a GBI analyst tested that headliner for gunshot residue?
Do not.
You don't know what the results are either, do you?
No, sir.
Okay. Okay. You took out warrants on March 16th, 2022 at 6:39 p.m., correct? For my client as well as Mr. Nichols and Mr. Farley.
Yes. Well, 6:40 p.m., but yeah.
Okay, 6:40 p.m.
On the
And that
16th, yeah.
And that was right after, or shortly after you had that conversation with Investigator Viverito in police headquarters where she identified the people that were in the BP
That's
video.
correct. Yeah, her,
Okay.
the Sergeant Belknap, yes.
So once you had an identification from the BP, that's when you move forward with the arrest warrants against Mr. Stillwell.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Well, I want to talk to you about your analysis of the FedEx video. You have your report in front of you, correct?
I do.
Okay. At the time that you swore out these warrants against Mr. Stillwell, you had never even viewed that FedEx video, had you?
I don't think I got that till afterwards. I did speak with a representative who described it to me and sent me some still shots.
Okay. And I'm gonna go to page 14, going into 15 of your investigative report.
Okay.
On page 14, going to 15, you write, as of the writing of this report, and this report was written on 3/20/22, correct?
Well, that's when I started it, but yeah.
Okay, so you started this report 4 days after you you obtained the arrest warrants for Mr. Stillwell.
That's correct.
You started this report 4 days after that. Okay.
Yes.
And-
This part, now I had notes and all that stuff, but yeah.
Understood. And you say, as of the writing of this report, the actual video from FedEx has been requested via a subpoena, but has not been received. The above pictures were sent to me by a FedEx corporate officer who told me that he had watched a video which shows that the two white cars pulled up alongside the red Nissan, forming a straight line across the road. And then suddenly the two white cars sped away against the red light and the red car stays in place. That's verbatim from your report, correct?
Yes, sir.
And your report is accurate to that fact.
It is, yes.
You, at the time of writing this report, and certainly at the time of bringing out warrants against my client, you had not watched that FedEx video.
No.
But you had spoken to someone at FedEx corporate that sent you some still pictures, correct?
That's correct.
And had told you what they felt they saw on that video, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Who was that FedEx corporate officer who analyzed this FedEx video?
I don't remember.
Do you know that person to have any law enforcement training?
Not familiar with it.
Okay. Do you know how many times that person watched that video before giving you his or her conclusions about what the FedEx video contained?
No.
Okay. When did you finally receive the FedEx video?
I don't recall exactly when I got it.
Do you remember what month?
No, I don't remember.
When did you remember when you first watched that FedEx video?
I've seen it several times, but I don't remember when I first saw it, no.
Was it months after bringing up these arrest warrants on Mr. Stillwell?
No, it wasn't months. It was a few days probably.
A few days would have been 4 days afterwards you started writing this report, and you didn't even have the FedEx video then. So could it have been longer than a few days before you watched the video?
It could have, yes, it could have been.
Okay. And of course, you brought those warrants on March 16th, 2022 without any gunshot residue results from that white Audi.
That's correct.
You said you saw a car in that video, the FedEx video. Ms. Hilton, could you play the FedEx video for me? Thank you. And it can be 101:20. We can start. I think it's fair to say you saw a car making a U-turn on the video and you saw it was a little odd.
Yes.
It piqued your interest?
Well, it just, yeah, it did. I wouldn't say it piqued my interest. It just went with the situation, I guess.
I think you said you thought, on direct, you testified, you thought that the person driving that car may have heard or seen something, correct?
Yes, I did.
And the reason you say that is because that person driving that car abruptly made a U-turn.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. If we could go to 101:20. Yeah, just. That's that's the red Versa pulling up, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and that would be the white Audi.
Yes.
And that would be the white Fusion pulling up on the right lane, correct?
That's correct.
That's not the car that makes the U-turn, is it?
No, sir, I don't believe so.
Okay. And Mr. Stillwell is now running the light. He's no longer there, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. We see now this car pulls up and makes that interesting U-turn, correct?
Yes, sir.
And your determination is maybe they did that because they may have seen or heard something, correct?
Maybe.
Okay. I have no further questions. Thank you.
Anything, Ms. Weinstein? Redirect?
I actually want to start right here at the FedEx video. Was there anything in the video, once you actually watched it, that was inconsistent with what you were told by the FedEx person?
No, ma'am.
In the video we just watched, prior to Mr. Stillwell fleeing into the red light, was the white Fusion and the Audi stopped for a moment before fleeing into oncoming traffic?
Yes.
Now, Mr. Shard asked you a number of reasons as to why a person may rent a vehicle. Do you remember him asking you that?
I do, yes.
Or why they may put tint on a window. Do you remember him asking you a series of questions?
Yes.
Can a person place tinted windows on a rental car to conceal themselves in an attempt to seek revenge on the person that they think may have killed their two friends 3 days before?
Yes.
Mr. Shard asked you a series of questions about whether or not someone may be rolling a blunt in a car or things of that nature. Do you know if while they were sitting in the car, both the individuals in the Audi and the individuals in the Ford Fusion, if they were maybe talking to each other in the car? Do you know if they were doing that?
I do not know.
Do you know if the people in both cars were on FaceTime with each other?
Do not know.
Do you know if the individuals were in the car planning at that time to kill someone? Do you know if that was happening?
I do not know.
Mr. Stillwell, the Audi was backed in. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay. And if the Audi was backed in, did they have the vantage point of seeing Mr. Drinks when his car pulled into the gas station?
Yes.
Okay. Did the Audi, because it was backed in, have the vantage point to see Mr. Drinks as he walked into the gas station?
They did, yes.
Did the Audi, because of his vantage point, see when Mr. Drinks left the gas station and got back into his car?
Yes.
And was it the Audi that immediately pulled off once Mr. Drinks' car pulled off?
Yes.
And then the Fusion followed?
That's correct.
And that was the same vehicle in which Mr. Jackson, it appeared, was the driver?
That's correct.
Mr. Shard asked you a number of questions about the facial features of, I think, both Mr. Nichols and Mr. Stillwell while they were inside of the gas station. Do you remember him asking you a series of questions about that?
Yes.
Do you know what their facial expressions looked like while they were in the tinted vehicle?
No.
Do you know if, as they saw Shamel Drink walking into the car, that their facial expressions changed from what they looked like inside of the BP gas station?
I think we're getting to facts, not evidence. It's complete speculation at this point.
Sustained.
Now I want to show you what's already been admitted as State's Exhibit 118 BV. and I'm going to go to 9:49 p.m. the read. And does that read say Windsor Street and Richardson Avenue?
It does, yes.
And is that location that's not too far from the BP gas station?
That's correct, yes.
And at what time is the Audi passing the LPR reader on Windsor and Richardson Street?
9:49 with 6 seconds.
And Mr. Shard asked you whether or not the surveillance video camera times are accurate. We're looking at this time here at 9:49 and looking at the surveillance video timestamps, especially at the BP. Would that help you determine if whether or not the BP gas station video was accurate or not?
Yes.
Okay. And based on looking at both the LPR reader and the timestamps on the BP video, are those times, do they seem to be accurate?
They seem to be similar, yes. They're not exact, but they are similar.
Okay. And about how far would you say the Richardson and Windsor is from where that BP gas station is?
Not far. It kind of depends on traffic and the light, but anywhere from a few seconds to a minute or two.
Okay. Now, Mr. Shar asked you about the headliner and gunshot residue. Do you remember those series of questions?
I do.
If a car is cleaned, could that remove any GSR that may have been in the car?
From what I understand, yes.
Now, looking at the BP video and FedEx, did any other car besides the white Audi and the white Fusion that immediately followed the red Versa, was there any other car that immediately followed the red Versa out of the BP gas station?
No, ma'am.
Were there any other cars that pulled up right next to the red Versa outside of the Audi and the BP and the Fusion?
No.
Was it after the Audi and the Fusion pulled up right next to the red Versa, and after they left, the red Versa just sat there for about 27 minutes?
That's correct.
The damage on the red Versa, is that all on the driver's side of, on the passenger side of the red Versa?
That's correct.
And is that the side of the vehicle closest to the driver's side of where the driver's side of the Audi would have been?
Yes.
Now, Mr. Shard asked you a number of questions. Why would someone keep the rental car, or why would they say that the car was their car with a car with a name? Do you remember some questions similar to that?
Yes.
At the time in which Investigator Viverito was speaking to Mr. Jackson at the house that got shot up, had you and Investigator Viverito talked about your investigation?
No.
Had you shown Investigator Viverito your surveillance video by the time that she was talking to Mr. Stillwell at that house?
No.
Prior to talking to Investigator Viverito, did you know that there was a white Audi at a house that was recently just shot up?
No.
Did you know that Mr. Stillwell was in a pink Floyd shirt prior to talking to Investigator Viverito while she spoke with him at the house that got shot up?
No.
Did you know that Miles Farley was with him at the house that just got shot up in the same clothes prior to talking to Investigator Viverito?
No.
Were you ever made aware of an individual by the name of Demekion Garlington was also at the house along with Miles Farley and Shannon when Investigator Viverito spoke with them?
No.
With the red Versa, did you ever learn if that was a rental car or not?
No. It was. I don't believe it was. I believe it belonged to one of his family members.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
I believe it belonged to one of Mr. Drink's family members. The red car. I think, if I recall right.
Did the Versa have any tinted windows?
No.
Court's indulgent for one moment. Mr. Shard asked you about Mr. Stillwell's conversations with Investigator Viverito at the home. Do you remember him asking you about the conversation Mr. Stillwell had with Investigator Viverito when she met with him at the house?
Yes.
To your knowledge, did Mr. Stillwell ever tell Investigator Viverito why he had tinted windows on a rental vehicle?
No.
Did he ever tell Investigator Viverito why he put tints on the car within a few hours of renting the vehicle?
Objection, Your Honor. That's not enough.
Sustained.
Mr. Shar asked you about seeing a muzzle flash at the light. Did you see any muzzle flashes at all on that surveillance video?
I looked for him, couldn't see any, no.
But was there still a deceased individual sitting at that light once you arrived on the scene?
Yes.
All right. And do you have any knowledge if Mr. Stillwell told Investigator Viverito when he put those tints on his vehicle?
I do not.
I have no further questions.
Request?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, you're excused. I believe y'all have got one more witness.
He's going to be long, but we can start.
What?
We can start him. Yes, he's going to be long, is what she said. We can start.
How long?
About an hour and a half.
To an hour and a half? Wish y'all had kept a shorter witness. Okay, I guess we'll stop for the day. I mean, I don't know who the witness is.
Detective Vampire.
Who?
Detective Vampire.
All right.
Lieutenant Buck. sergeant or lieutenant?
Lieutenant now.
Lieutenant. Good morning. My name is Max Shard. I represent Shannon Stillwell. Okay. Just briefly, when you were in the office before going to the scene on March 14, 2022, it sounded like you began your work in the office.
Correct.
Okay. My understanding from your testimonies, we have VIC cameras, which can be divided into different groupings.
Correct.
Okay, so we had the city-owned cameras, which record.
Right.
We have LPRs, which take photos.
Correct.
Okay. Then we have businesses on the grid that record as well.
So depending how the business wants, they can provide access to their cameras, or they can just let us know, hey, there's a camera here. So if an investigation were to go on, instead of knocking door to door, it can kind of streamline us to go straight here instead of walking a whole neighborhood or whatever the case may be.
And then we have Department of Transportation cameras. Are those part of the VIC system?
Well, we just have access to it. Like, they're not controlled by us, they're controlled by the state, but the state allows us access. Like, we also have access to Atlanta Public Schools cameras as well.
Okay. So let me ask you this. To city-owned cameras that record, were there not any city-owned cameras at the corner of 20 and Windsor Street?
Not at the time, no. Not that I could locate.
What do you mean, not that you could locate?
Well, we zoom in and out, and at the time there were no cameras there. But cameras are always getting installed, so at the time of that incident, there were no VIC cameras there.
Okay. You did locate this Department of Transportation camera, and your testimony is it just froze at 10:23 p.m. just as Mr. Cheeseborough showed up?
Correct.
Okay. And we don't have any recording of what happened at that location as seen by that camera from 10 o'clock to 10:23.
To my knowledge, that is correct, yes.
When you say to your knowledge that is correct, have you checked with the Department of Transportation?
No, I handled the scene and the response, and then investigation gets turned over to the lead detective.
Okay. And going back to, was that the only LPR you ran?
This query?
Yes, the query of, what is it, corner of Richardson and Windsor?
Yes.
Is that the only LPR that you personally ran?
I ran this, and then I also did the tag itself to see where else it would hit.
Okay.
And so there was another query, but this one most related to that geographical area.
Understand. The only individual car that you personally looked into or queried was the red
Correct.
Versa.
Right.
Okay. And finally, this VIC camera system, how long have you been working with the system?
I mean, everybody on the department has access to it. So from day one, I mean, anybody can log in and use it. I mean, however, since it's been in existence, so I don't remember when we first started getting it, but it's been some years.
When you say some years, when approximately, you said from day one?
I mean, I can't give an exact date, but I was in Special Victims back in 2018, and we just started getting them. But I really started using them mostly when I was in homicide, which was 2019.
Okay. And now, are you saying you started using them, or that's when they were available?
I don't know the go live date on it.
Okay.
But my most interaction was probably between 2018 and 2019.
How about LPRs?
LPRs, the same. Those actually came out a little before, and it was on a different program, but still the same.
Okay. All right. Thank you. No further questions.
All right. Ms. Weinstein, anything for me?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, any redirect?
Just briefly, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
Sergeant Butler, for the years that you've been serving in your position, did DOT cameras ever report?
No.
No, perfect.
All right, thank you for your time. You are excused. Call our next witness.